Welcome to Bike World, welcome to the south of France. I'm going to do about 220 kilometres around some French mountainside on this Husqvarna Svartpilen 801. Is this just a KTM 790 Duke in posh fairing? Let's find out. Welcome to the south of France. I am on the Husqvarna Svartpilen 801. What's going to happen today? Well, we're going to go and ride it for about 220 kilometres through some beautiful mountainside in the south of France. I'm just an hour's north of Marseille. We're going to do a couple of photo and tracking shots and stop for lunch, have a bit of a think. So first impressions on this Svartpilen, it's already one hell of a riot. The engine is very very lively actually, and there's a great little pot of a Euro 5 compliant that rattles out the exhaust on a bit of overrun. Very flickable, so it's 181 kilograms of dry weight, so yeah, just shy of 200. I am just throwing it through these corners. I think it's got a bit of a better feel for how to get it in sport mode. These roads are lending itself a little bit better to how I want to handle it. So I've got the balls of my feet on the foot pegs now, so I'm feeling it a lot easier. Yes, R1, R7. I'm finding it a lot easier to shift my body weight over and ride it a bit more sportily. So we've just stopped for lunch. We've had about a couple of hours on the Svartpilen 801 so far, and I've been able to kind of reflect and think about how it's felt to ride. So on first sitting on it, the kind of rider triangle is what I initially felt. So the kind of space between my hands and my arse and feet. My arms felt ever so slightly stretched. Find the bars slightly far forward. I think I'd like a bit more bend in my arms, but the good news is pretty sure I can adjust that. So we've got these asymmetrical bar adjustments where I can actually bring it, I think 7 mil closer, and feet were just under my waist, so felt pretty comfortable, slightly stretched. In terms of the frame, a lot of people would think that this is the 790 KTM Duke, but in the Svartpilen 801 frame, it's not. The frame is custom bespoke to this bike, and as is the slight change in rake angle. So it's a slightly longer rake, so less pivoting around the front, so it just makes the bike a bit more stable, and you can certainly feel that as you're riding in more of a comfort cruisy kind of way. It's smooshy. you can smoosh your way and blend and roll your way through the corners. Yep, so looking forward to this afternoon. Left after lunch and I had one job, and that was to put it in sport mode and rain mode and try out those different feelings on the throttle response. I've just left it dynamic because that's where the most fun is. I'm definitely banging it down the box a little bit more now. Bottomed out that suspension. It's been a bit of a day of two halves. So firstly, we were lucky enough to have some stunning dry weather. We left the hotel very energetic. I'm definitely really excited about riding the Svartpilen because I was really curious about it. I've spent some time on some Japanese brands recently. I've ridden some Italian brands for a while, and I was really curious to see how the Svartpilen felt because I've not ridden something of this genre before. I'm finding it a little bit hard to describe. It's kind of scrambler, it's kind of flat track. There's a little bit of roadster in there, maybe it's a little bit cruiser, but not. And I'm trying to see where that sits in what category of bike it sits in and how I would feel riding it. So I started the day excited, interested, slightly confused, but curious, because I wanted to see what a Svartpilen was about. It is the 801, so it's a 7.9cc engine, 105 brake horsepower, about 97 newton meters of torque. I kind of originally thought that I'd enjoy the engine and I'd enjoy, really curious about riding something a little bit different. What I got is kind of like exactly that. The body position just slightly tweaked. It clearly wasn't sporty, it wasn't that far back in terms of a cruiser and a roadster. It just sat in that kind of middle range, and I had enough movement and freedom to move forward and move back on the seat. I wasn't wanting for anything, just the right amount of power for the road. You can still release your license on it quite easily. Felt nicely planted with the WP Apex suspension, so I felt stuck to the road. Feel like I just had to work a little bit harder to tip it left and right, just because it's not a pivoted, poised sports bike. It's not. It's something that just allows you to blend between the two, and I think that's what's a really kind of nice nicheness to it. That's what I enjoyed this morning. So from initial expectation to then reality, it's kind of like better than that. Push the bike into dynamic mode now. I've left the throttle response as it is, so I don't know if that's lifted straight from street, but I'm in dynamic mode, so I've unlocked all the extra settings that you can buy as an optional accessory for the bike. So I've now got anti-wheelie adjustments available. I've still got supermoto ABS adjustments. I've got MSR, motor slip regulator, and MTC, motorcycle traction control. So I've got a few more adjustable options, and then I can kind of change the throttle response to customise to me. So yeah, a few more extra bits. Then this afternoon, the afternoon part of the day was wet. I actually got to use rain mode for once, and I think it's important to have that kind of feature on a bike. It definitely softened the whole throttle response completely, and it turned what is quite a playful bike into something far more moderated, with still enough drive and push and punch to then do easy overtakes, which is quite good. It's got this fabulous little bit of chaos that brings in the kind of gas, KTM and husky play factor that I think is quite special, because the minute you get comfortable with how the throttle responds, the minute you can start being a little bit of an idiot on it. When we stopped at lunch, okay, so what we do is we line up our bikes outside the restaurant, for example. When we came out after lunch, two Ducati owners had just left their Street Fighters just right in the middle of our little pack of these black Svartpilens. And you couldn't help but go, oh look, Italy's arrived, you know, with the kind of aerofoils and bright red colour scheme and carbon fibre everywhere. And then you kind of, oh, well, how is the Svartpilen, you know, attracting its attention in its own way as a result of that? We couldn't help but go, ooh, Ducati. And it's not something, it's something that you have to kind of get and you have to want out of the Husqvarna Svartpilen range, the Svartpilen, Vitpilen, the 401s, the 801s, the 701s. You kind of have to want to identify with how this bike comes across, because it's just a more sophisticated, subtler way of communicating modern bike styling. It's just something a little bit different. Where you look at Japanese bikes that have got bright colours and bits of fairing and accessories, or you look at the Italian models which have that kind of almost like excessive flair, there's a subtlety and refinement to how the Svartpilen comes across that kind of makes me want to wear a suit when I'm riding it and have a little bit of chaos underneath, like almost like a Superman shirt underneath, because that's how it felt to ride. It felt sublime, smooth, well engineered, good price tag. It wasn't lacking in anything. And then when I wanted to have that bit of stupid and silly, it was there for me, and I really enjoyed that. It boils down to, why would you want one? It is absolutely not a KTM in posh clothes. It is not. It has a custom frame with a very beautifully tuned 799cc engine with a really fabulous electronics package, a great TFT screen, but it is a spicier, more potent version than its kind of KTM equivalent, in the sense that it looks the part if you like that kind of styling of the bike. It is certainly something that you've got to be interested in and want to have that kind of appeal in the bike in terms of how it looks. It's novel, it's quite niche, it's a little bit different. It's come from a design house, it doesn't have crazy Italian flair, it doesn't use a colourway to drag attention to it. It's just got a little bit of fun and pizzazz underneath that skin of it. That's what you're investing in. Professional, stylish and sophisticated with a little bit of crazy underneath. Now that is the Svartpilen.